The alarm bells rang through the Galactic Council monitoring station like the screams of dying stars. Observer Veltar's crystalline body vibrated with each sharp note as he moved his 6 limbs across the control panels. His species had been watching the Outer Rim territories for over 300 years, and he had never heard an alarm this urgent. The main screen flickered to life, showing waves of emergency signals coming from the dangerous space beyond civilized worlds. Most species avoided that area. It was full of radiation storms, unstable stars, and creatures that could eat metal ships for breakfast. Only the foolish went there, and most never came back. "What is it this time?" Veltar muttered to himself. His voice sounded like wind chimes, in a gentle breeze. He pulled up the signal data and froze. The transmission was coming from humans. Humans were new to the galactic community. They had only made contact 5 years ago when one of their primitive ships stumbled into Council space. The Council had been shocked to learn that humans came from a death world called Earth. Their planet was covered in water that could drown you, air that could poison other species, and weather that could freeze or burn you to death in minutes. Most Council members thought humans were too dangerous to trust. They called them Deathworlders and kept them at arm's length. Humans were always exploring places they shouldn't go and fighting things they couldn't win against. They seemed to enjoy danger. Veltar adjusted his sensors to get a clearer signal. The human voice came through the static, broken, and desperate. "This is Commander Lee Tae-min of the research vessel New Seoul. We are sending this message to all ships in the sector. Do not approach our position. Repeat, do not approach. We have encountered massive hostiles in the Void Nebula. Our ship is damaged, but we are still fighting. If you receive this message, warn the Council. Something terrible is waking up out here." The transmission cut to static. Veltar replayed it 3 times, his crystal body growing dimmer with worry. The Void Nebula was a place even the Council's best ships avoided. It was a massive cloud of gas and dust that blocked most sensors and communications. Nothing good ever came from that dark corner of space. He sent the signal up to his supervisors and waited. Within minutes, his communication panel lit up with incoming calls from across the Council. Everyone wanted to know what the humans had found. Admiral Kethmon was the first to respond in person. The tall, blue-skinned warrior materialized on Veltar's communication screen, his 4 arms crossed over his muscular chest. The Kethai were the galaxy's strongest military force, and Kethmon was their best commander. "Observer," Kethmon said, in his deep voice, "what do we know about this human distress call?" Veltar sent him the data. "The signal is real, Admiral. It comes from a human research ship called the New Seoul. Commander Lee Tae-min is requesting help, but he also tells everyone to stay away. This is very strange behavior." Kethmon studied the information. "Humans are always strange. They explore places that would kill any sensible being. What could they have found that scares them?" "I do not know," Veltar admitted. "But the Void Nebula has been quiet for thousands of years. Our oldest records say it was dangerous long before any of our species reached the stars." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "How many ships does this human have?" "Only one, sir. A small research vessel with maybe 50 crew members." Kethmon laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. 50 humans against something in the Void Nebula, and they're still transmitting? Either they're the luckiest beings in the galaxy, or they're tougher than we thought. Meanwhile, deep in the Void Nebula, Commander Lee Tae-min wiped blood from his forehead and looked at the damage reports scrolling across his screen. The New Seoul was a tough ship, built for exploring dangerous places, but it had never faced anything like this. "Dr. Park, how long until the engines are back online?" he called across the bridge. Dr. Park, so young, looked up from her console, her face pale but determined. 20 minutes, maybe 30. The electromagnetic interference from the nebula is making everything 10 times harder." Engineer Kim Woo-jin's voice crackled over the communication system from the engine room. "Commander, we've got bigger problems. Those things damaged our faster-than-light drive. We can't jump out of here even if we wanted to." Tae-min closed his eyes for a moment. They had come to the Void Nebula to study the strange energy readings their long-range sensors had detected. It was supposed to be a simple research mission. They would take some readings, collect some samples, and head home with data that might help humans understand the galaxy better. Instead, they had awakened, something that should have stayed sleeping. The first attack had come without warning. Massive shapes had emerged from the deepest part of the nebula. Things that looked like someone had crossed a whale with a spaceship and then covered it in weapons. They moved like living creatures, but fired energy beams like warships. Worst of all, they seemed to learn from every attack, adapting their tactics in real time. "Captain Yoon, report," Taemin called to his second-in-command. Captain Yoon Dae-ho was coordinating the ship's defenses from the tactical station. "We're holding them off for now, but they keep coming. Every time we destroy one, two more take its place. It's like they're calling for help." Tactical Officer Bae Hyun-woo looked up from his weapons console. "Sir, I'm reading massive movement in the center of the nebula. Whatever we woke up, it's big. Really big." Taemin moved to the main view screen and stared into the swirling clouds of the nebula. Lightning flashed in the distance, but it wasn't natural lightning. It was energy discharges from creatures the size of cities moving through space. "How many people know about this place?" he asked Dr. Park. "Just us," she replied. "The council marked it as forbidden territory centuries ago. No one was supposed to come here." "Now we know why," Taemin muttered. "He made a decision that would change everything." "Send another transmission. Make sure every ship in the sector hears it." The communication officer nodded and opened all channels. Taemin's voice carried across space, reaching monitoring stations, trading ships, and military patrols. "This is Commander Lee Taemin of the human vessel New Seoul. We are trapped in the Void Nebula with hostile forces of unknown origin. These creatures are extremely dangerous and appear to be ancient. Do not attempt rescue. Repeat, do not attempt rescue. We will try to contain the threat, but if we fail, warn the Council. This could threaten the entire galaxy." Back at the monitoring station, Veltar listened to the transmission with growing alarm. The human wasn't asking for help anymore. He was warning everyone to stay away while he and his crew faced impossible odds alone. "Observer," Admiral Kethmon's voice came through the communication system. "Gather all available data on the Void Nebula. I want to know everything our ancestors knew about that place." "Are you planning a rescue mission, Admiral?" Kethmon was quiet for a moment. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm planning to watch Deathworlders do what they do best." As the hours passed, more transmissions came from the New Seoul. Each one told the same story. The humans were fighting something terrible, but they weren't running. They were staying to protect the galaxy from a threat they had accidentally unleashed. The last transmission of the day was different. It came from Dr. Park So-young, and her voice was filled with scientific excitement despite the danger. "Council monitoring stations, this is Dr. Park of the New Seoul. We have identified the hostile creatures. They match descriptions from our oldest database entries. We believe these are the legendary Devourers, the galaxy eaters from the ancient wars. They have been sleeping in the nebula for thousands of years. We accidentally woke them up." The transmission ended with the sound of explosions and battle cries. Then silence. Veltar stared at his screens in horror. The Devourers were supposed to be myths, stories told to frighten young beings. If they were real, and if they were waking up, then 50 humans in one small ship were all that stood between the galaxy and its greatest nightmare. He began preparing reports for the Council emergency session. Someone had to decide what to do about the humans and their terrible discovery. But deep down, Veltar wondered if it was already too late. Admiral Kethmon stood in the command center of his flagship, the Sword of Justice, watching his fleet prepare for jump. 3 heavy cruisers, 5 destroyers, and 2 support ships made up his patrol force. It was enough firepower to level a small moon, and Kethmon had used it to keep peace in this sector for 10 years. But as he looked at the data about the Void Nebula, he wondered if it would be enough. "War Commander Jexal," he called to his second-in-command. "Are all ships ready?" Jexal was a veteran of 20 battles, with scars covering his blue skin and medals hanging from his uniform. He had never lost a fight, and he didn't plan to start now. "Yes, Admiral. All ships report ready for faster-than-light jump." "Good. Take us to the edge of the Void Nebula. Maximum speed." The Kethai fleet jumped through space in a flash of blue light. They had been traveling for 6 hours since receiving the human distress calls. Most of the Council thought Kethmon was making a mistake. Why risk good ships and trained soldiers to help a species that everyone called dangerous? But Kethmon had studied humans since they first appeared in council space. They were different from other species, that was true. They came from a world that would kill most beings in minutes. They seemed to enjoy fighting and exploring dangerous places, but they also had something rare in the galaxy. They would fight to protect others, even strangers. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Void Nebula. Immediately, all their sensors went crazy. The nebula was full of energy storms and strange readings that made it hard to see anything clearly. "Science Officer Torvin, what are you reading?" Kethmon asked. Torvin was a small, green-skinned being with 6 eyes that could see different types of energy. His species was known for their scientific skills, and he was one of the best. "Admiral, this nebula is not natural. Something has been changing it from the inside. The energy patterns are like nothing in our databases. Can you locate the human ship? Scanning now?" Torvin worked at his console for several minutes. "I'm getting a weak signal from deep inside the nebula. The new Sol is approximately 50,000 kilometers from our position, but the interference makes it hard to tell." Kethmon nodded. "Take us in slowly. I want all weapons ready and shields at maximum power." As the fleet moved into the nebula, the crew began to see things that made their blood run cold. Pieces of metal floated in space, some of them bigger than buildings, but they weren't from any ship design in the Council databases. They looked organic, like parts of giant sea creatures, but they were made of metal and crystal. "Admiral," the communication officer called, "I'm receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it through." Commander Lee Taemin's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired and wounded, with a bandage around his head and his uniform torn. Behind him, smoke filled the bridge of his ship. "Admiral Kethmon," Taemin said, his voice hoarse. "You shouldn't have come. This place is more dangerous than we thought." "Commander, what is your situation?" Kethmon asked. "We've been fighting for 18 hours straight. The creatures we awakened are called Devourers. They're ancient, probably. Older than any of our civilizations. They consume everything they touch and learn from every attack we make against them." On the screen, sparks flew from damaged systems behind Taemin. Someone shouted a warning in the background. "How many are there?" Kethmon asked. "We've destroyed at least 30, but they keep coming. They're building something in the center of the nebula, something big. If they finish it, they'll be able to leave this place and spread across the galaxy." War Commander Jexal stepped forward. "Commander, why haven't you retreated? Your ship is clearly damaged." Taemin looked directly at him. "Because someone has to stop them. If these things get loose, they'll destroy everything. Every world, every species, every ship they encounter. We can't let that happen." Kethmon felt a chill run down his spine. The human was willing to die, to protect species that had barely accepted his people into the galactic community. "What do you need from us?" "Don't try to rescue us," Taemin said firmly. "Help us fight. These things are smart, but they haven't faced combined tactics before. If we work together, we might have a chance." The transmission was cut short by a massive explosion that shook the new Sol. When the image cleared, Taemin was picking himself up from the floor. "Admiral," Science Officer Torvin called urgently. "Massive energy signatures approaching from the nebula center, multiple contacts moving fast." The first Devourer emerged from the swirling clouds like a nightmare made real. It was the size of a small asteroid, shaped like a whale but covered in metal armor and bristling with weapons. Energy crackled along its surface, and its mouth could have swallowed a destroyer whole. "All ships, battle stations," Kethmon ordered. "Target the lead creature with all main weapons." The Kethai fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy, beams, and missile volleys struck the Devourer, lighting up the nebula with explosions. For a moment, Kethmon thought they had won easily. Then the smoke cleared, and the creature was still there. Not only was it undamaged, but its armor seemed to have adapted to their weapons. Where the energy beams had hit, new reflective plates had grown. Where the missiles had exploded, thicker armor had formed. "Impossible," Jexal whispered. "Admiral," came Captain Yoon Dae-ho's voice over the communication system from the new Sol. "Don't use the same weapon twice. They learn and adapt to everything." More Devourers emerged from the nebula, each one different from the last. Some were long and snake-like, Others were spherical with tentacles. But all of them were massive, all of them were armed, and all of them were heading straight for the combined fleet. "This is insane," Torvin said, staring at his readings. "These creatures violate everything we know about biology and physics. They shouldn't be able to exist." The battle began in earnest. The HFY ships used their advanced tactics, coordinating their attacks and using their superior technology, but the Devourers were learning from every shot fired, every maneuver attempted. What worked once never worked again. Then the human ship entered the fight and everything changed. The new Sol was tiny compared to the HFY cruisers, and it was obviously damaged. But it moved like a living thing, dodging between the massive Devourers and striking at weak points that the HFY couldn't even see. "How are they doing that?" Jexal asked in amazement. Engineer Kim Woo-jin's voice crackled over the communication system. "We've been fighting these things for hours. We know where they're vulnerable." The humans weren't using standard tactics. Instead of firing their main weapons at the Devourer's armor, they were targeting specific points with smaller weapons. They fired chemical explosives that ate through the creature's hull, used electromagnetic pulses that disrupted their adaptation systems, and even rammed damaged sections of their own ship into critical areas. "They're using their ship as a weapon," Torvin observed with scientific fascination. "They're willing to destroy their own vessel to win the battle." Dr. Park So-young's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral Kethmon, we're transmitting tactical data to your ships. These creatures adapt to energy weapons quickly, but they're slower to adapt to kinetic impacts and chemical attacks." Kethmon looked at the data flowing onto his screens. The humans had learned more about fighting. Devourers in 18 hours than the HFY military had learned about fighting anything in decades. "All ships," he ordered, "switch to kinetic weapons and chemical warheads. Follow the human ship's lead." The tide of battle began to turn. Working together, the human and HFY ships started destroying Devourers faster than they could adapt. But for every creature they killed, 2 more emerged from the nebula's depths. Medic Choi Yun-ji's voice came over the communication system, calm despite the chaos around her. "HFY ships, we're receiving wounded from your fleet. Our medical bay is ready to treat any species." Jexal looked at Kethmon in surprise. "Admiral, their ship is falling apart, and they're offering to help our wounded." "That's what Deathworlders do," Kethmon replied, beginning to understand why humans were so dangerous. They weren't dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they would sacrifice everything for others. Tactical Officer Bae Hyun-woo coordinated the combined fleet's movements, somehow managing to keep track of dozens of ships and hundreds of Devourers at the same time. His voice stayed calm as he called out targets and maneuvers, turning the chaotic battle into something approaching organized warfare. But as more Devourers emerged from the nebula, even the combined fleet began to struggle. The creatures were learning faster now, adapting to the humans' tricks and the HFY's technology. "Admiral," Torvin called, "long-range sensors are detecting something massive moving in the nebula's center. It's at least 10 times larger than anything we've seen so far." Kethmon felt ice in his veins. If the Devourers they were fighting were just scouts, what was waiting in the heart of the nebula? "Commander Tae-min," he called to the human ship. "We need to know what's in the center of that nebula." Taemin's image appeared on screen again, and this time Kethmon could see the determination in the human's eyes. "We're going to find out." "Admiral, but I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If we don't make it back, if these things overwhelm us, you need to warn the..." The new Sol moved deeper into the void nebula like a wounded animal seeking shelter. But Commander Lee Tae-min knew there would be no shelter here, only answers that might help the galaxy survive what was coming. "Dr. Park," he called to his chief scientist, "what are your sensors telling you about the center of this nebula?" Dr. Park So-young studied her readings with the focus of someone whose life depended on understanding the impossible. "The energy signatures are off the charts, Commander. Whatever is in there, it's been building power for a very long time." Behind them, the combined human and HFY fleet continued to battle the smaller Devourers. The sound of explosions echoed through space, reaching the new Sol as vibrations through the ship's hull. But Taemin knew the real fight hadn't started yet. Engineer Kim Woo-jin's voice crackled through the communication system from the engine room. Commander, I've got the faster-than-light drive working again, but it won't last long. The electromagnetic interference from the nebula is tearing our systems apart. How long do we have? Maybe an hour, maybe less. After that, we're stuck here. Taemin made his decision. Get us to the center of the nebula. Maximum speed. Captain Yoon-dae-ho looked up from his tactical station. Sir, shouldn't we stay and help the fleet? The fleet can handle the scouts, Taemin replied. But if we don't find out what's really going on here, none of us are going home. The new soul pushed through the swirling clouds and energy storms of the nebula's heart. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. The nebula wasn't just a cloud of gas and dust. It was alive, pulsing with rhythms that reminded Taemin of a massive heartbeat. Commander, Dr. Park called, her voice tight with excitement and fear. I'm reading artificial structures ahead. Massive ones. The main view screen flickered to life, showing what lay hidden in the nebula's center. Taemin felt his breath catch in his throat. It was a city the size of a small moon, floating in space and covered in the same organic metal as the Devourer ships. Spires twisted up from its surface like the ribs of some enormous beast, and energy flowed between them, in patterns that hurt to look at directly. How long has this been here? Tactical Officer Bae Hyun-woo whispered. According to the energy decay patterns, Dr. Park said, running calculations. At least 50,000 years? Maybe longer. As they watched, parts of the city began to move. What they had thought were buildings were actually massive devourers, bigger than anything they had fought before. Some were the size of battleships, others the size of space stations. And they were all waking up. We need to contact the fleet, Taemin said. They need to know what they're really facing. But when they tried to transmit, only static came through. The electromagnetic interference from the city was blocking all communications. We're on our own, Captain Yoon said grimly. Dr. Park continued studying her readings. Commander, I'm detecting something else. There are patterns in the city's energy, output, almost like a language. Can you translate it? I'm trying, but it's unlike anything in our databases. She paused, her face growing pale. Wait, I'm getting fragments. It's not a language. It's a memory. The ship's main computer began displaying images pulled from the electromagnetic patterns surrounding the city. They showed scenes from long ago when the galaxy was young and full of different species than the ones living there now. The images told a story of war. A terrible war that had raged across the entire galaxy between two great powers. On one side were the creators of the city, beings of pure thought and energy who had built wonders beyond imagination. On the other side were creatures that consumed everything they touched, growing stronger with each victory. The Devourers, Dr. Park whispered. They're not the original species. They're the evolved descendants of the ones who won that ancient war. More images flowed across the screen. The energy beings had fought bravely, but they were losing. The Devourers consumed their cities, their technology, their very essence. In desperation, the energy beings had created one final weapon, a trap that would put the Devourers into a deep sleep, hidden in the farthest reaches of space. The Void Nebula, Taemin realized. It's not natural. It's a prison. The images showed the final battle, with the last energy beings sacrificing themselves to activate the trap. The Devourers had been caught in a sleep so deep that they became part of the nebula itself, dreaming of conquest while the galaxy moved on without them. And we woke them up, Dr. Park said quietly. A new sound filled the ship, different from the usual hum of the engines. It was a voice, speaking in a language that no living being should understand, but somehow they all knew what it was saying. Welcome, little ones. We have been dreaming of you for so long. The voice came from the city itself, transmitted through the same electromagnetic patterns that Dr. Park had been studying. It was ancient and patient, like something that had been waiting for thousands of years. You have given us a great gift, the voice continued. You have awakened us from our long sleep. In return, we will give you the gift of consumption. You will become part of us, as all things must. Captain Yoon moved to the weapons console. Commander, should we attack? Taemin studied the massive city before them. Their ship's weapons would be like throwing pebbles at a mountain. Not yet. We need more information. Dr. Park worked frantically at her console. I'm trying to access more of their memory patterns. There has to be something about how they were defeated before. The voice spoke again, and this time it carried amusement. You seek the memories of our enemies. How curious. They thought they had won by trapping us here. They thought we would sleep forever. But we have been learning, growing, becoming more than we were. Images began appearing on the ship's screens again, but these were different. They showed the Devourers' dreams during their long sleep. They had dreamed of consuming the galaxy, but they had also dreamed of the species that would eventually fill it. They knew about humans, about the Kethai, about every species in the Council. We know you, the voice said, and Taemin felt it was speaking directly to him. You are the ones our enemies were like. Warriors from a world of death and violence. You fight like they did, with passion and sacrifice and clever tricks. The truth hit Taemin like a physical blow. The ancient energy beings who had created the trap hadn't been peaceful scientists. They had been warriors, fighters who had come from dangerous worlds and learned to survive against impossible odds. They had been like humans. That's why our tactics work, he said aloud. We fight the same way they did. Yes, the voice agreed. And now you will feed us as they did. Your strength will become our strength. Your knowledge will become our knowledge. And when we are finished with you, we will consume your galaxy as we consumed theirs. More Devourers began emerging from the city, these ones larger and more complex than any they had seen before. Some had multiple heads. Others had weapons that looked like they could crack planets. All of them turned toward the tiny human ship with hungry interest. Dr. Park, Taemin called urgently, please tell me you found something useful in those memories. I'm trying, but the patterns are so complex. Wait. She paused, her eyes widening. Commander, the energy beings didn't just trap the Devourers. They left something behind. A failsafe, hidden in the city's core. What kind of failsafe? A way to turn the trap back on. If we could reach it, we might be able to put them back to sleep. Taemin looked at the massive city and the hundreds of Devourers emerging from it. How do we get there? We'd have to go through the city itself, past all of them. The voice of the Devourers spoke again, and this time it was filled with dark laughter. You cannot hide your thoughts from us, little warriors. We know what you plan. The path to the core is guarded by our greatest champions. Many have tried to reach it over the millennia. All have failed. But even as the voice spoke, Taemin was forming a plan. It was insane, probably suicidal, but it might work. Humans were good at insane plans. Dr. Park, can you map a route to the core? Yes, but Commander, the defensive systems around it are incredible. We'd never make it. Maybe we don't have to. Taemin turned to the communication console. Can you boost our signal enough to reach the fleet? I can try. But the interference is massive. Do it. We need to tell them what we've learned. After several minutes of work, they managed to get a weak signal through to Admiral Kethmon's fleet. The Admiral's face appeared on screen, distorted by static but clearly worried. Commander, what's your status? Admiral, we've found the source. The entire nebula is a prison holding thousands of Devourers. They've been asleep for 50,000 years, but they're waking up now. Kethmon's expression grew grim. How many are we talking about? Enough to consume the galaxy, Taemin replied honestly. But there's a way to stop them. We need to reach the core of their city and activate an ancient failsafe. What do you need from us? Taemin smiled, even though he knew the Admiral couldn't see it clearly through the static. We need you to keep them busy while we make the most dangerous run in human history. Back on his flagship, Admiral Kethmon looked at War Commander Jexal. What do you think? I think these humans are either the bravest beings in the galaxy or the craziest, Jexal replied. Maybe both. Admiral, Science Officer Torvin called. More Devourers are emerging from the Nebu. The battle for the Void Nebula began with a roar that shook space itself. Admiral Kethmon watched from his flagship as hundreds of Devourers poured out of the ancient city, each one larger and more terrifying than the scouts his fleet had been. Fighting! All ships, engage at maximum range, he ordered. Give the humans time to reach the city core. The Kethai fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams, kinetic weapons, and chemical warheads lit up the nebula like a deadly fireworks display. But the new Devourers were different from the ones they had faced before. These were veterans of the ancient war, creatures that had learned to fight over thousands of years. War Commander Jexal studied the tactical display with growing concern. "Admiral, our weapons are having minimal effect. These Devourers are adapting faster than before." "Then we adapt faster too," Kethmon replied. "Signal all ships to rotate weapon types every 30 seconds. Don't give them time to adjust." Meanwhile, the new Sol raced toward the massive city, dodging between the largest Devourers as they focused on the fleet battle. Commander Lee Tae-min had never seen his ship move so fast or so precisely. Engineer Kim Woo-jin was pushing the engines beyond their safe limits, while Tactical Officer Bae Hyun-woo guided them through a maze of alien weapons fire. "Dr. Park," Tae-min called, "how close are we to the entrance you identified?" Dr. Park So-young studied her sensors while the ship shook around her. 2 kilometers and closing." "But, Commander, the energy readings from that entrance are increasing. They know we're coming." As if responding to her words, a massive section of the city began to unfold like a metal flower. What emerged was a devourer unlike any they had seen before. It was the size of a cruiser, but it moved with the grace of a living creature. Its surface was covered in weapons that tracked the new Sol's approach with predatory intelligence. "That's their guardian," Dr. Park whispered. The ancient memories showed creatures like this protecting the most important parts of their cities. Captain Yoon Dae-ho moved to the weapons console. "Commander, our main guns are ready. Fire everything." "We have," Tae-min ordered. The new Sol's weapons struck the Guardian with devastating force. For a moment, it seemed like they might have won easily. Then the smoke cleared, and the creature was not only undamaged, but had grown larger. The weapons fire had fed it, making it stronger. "It absorbed our attack," Bae Hyun-woo said in amazement. "How do we fight something that gets stronger when we shoot it?" Tae-min thought quickly. The ancient memories had shown that the energy beings who created this place were like humans in their fighting style. How would humans deal with an enemy that fed on direct attacks? "Don't feed it," he said suddenly. "Kim, can you overload one of our secondary systems?" Engineer Kim Woo-jin's voice came through the communication system. "Which one, Commander?" "The one that will make the biggest explosion when it fails." There was a pause. "Commander, are you asking me to sabotage our own ship?" "I'm asking you to turn our ship into a weapon," Tae-min replied. Kim understood immediately. Within minutes, he had rigged the ship's secondary power core to overload in a controlled manner. "Ready, Commander, but we'll only get one shot at this." The Guardian moved to intercept them, its weapons charging with energy that could vaporize their ship in seconds. Tae-min waited until the last possible moment, then gave the order, "Kim, now!" The overloaded power core exploded outward, but instead of destroying the new Sol, it created a massive electromagnetic pulse. The Guardian's systems, evolved to absorb and redirect energy weapons, couldn't handle the chaotic feedback. It writhed in space like a living thing in pain, its weapons firing randomly. "Go! Go! Go!" Tae-min shouted. The new Sol shot past the stunned Guardian and into the city's entrance. They found themselves in a vast tunnel that led toward the core. But the tunnel was alive with smaller Devourers that moved like antibodies in a bloodstream. "They're trying to seal us in," Captain Yoon observed as the tunnel walls began to close. "Behind them." "Good," Tae-min replied. "That means they're afraid of what we might do." Outside, the battle between the fleet and the main Devourer force was reaching a desperate point. The Kethai ships were fighting with courage and skill, but they were heavily outnumbered. Every time they destroyed one Devourer, 3 more took its place. Science Officer Torvin called out urgently from his station. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildup from the city core. Whatever the humans are trying to do, the Devourers are preparing to stop them." Admiral Kethmon made a decision that went against every military doctrine he had learned. "All ships, break formation and attack the city directly. We need to draw their attention away from the human ship." "Sir," Jexal protested, "that's suicide. The city's defensive systems will tear us apart." "Then we'll die fighting," Kethmon replied. "Signal all ships Today, we learn why humans call their world a death world. The Kethai fleet turned toward the massive city, their weapons blazing. The city's defenses responded immediately, filling space with energy beams and projectiles that could crack asteroids. But the fleet kept coming, trading their lives for time. Inside the city, the new soul raced through tunnels that seemed to go on forever. The walls were covered in the same organic metal as the Devourers, and they pulsed with a life that felt both ancient and hungry. "Dr. Park," Taemin called, "how much further to the core? According to the energy patterns, we're almost there. But Commander, the readings are getting strange. It's like the city is waking up around us." As if to confirm her words, the tunnel walls began to shift and change. Passages that had been open suddenly closed, while new ones opened in different directions. The city was trying to confuse them, to lead them away from their goal. "Bei, can you keep us on course?" Taemin asked. Tactical Officer Bei Hyun-woo studied the navigation display with intense concentration. "The tunnels keep changing, but the energy signature from the core stays constant. I can follow that." They burst out of the tunnels into a vast chamber at the heart of the city. What they saw there defied understanding. The chamber was filled with crystalline structures that reached from floor to ceiling, each one pulsing with different colors of light. At the center stood a platform, with what looked like a control console, but it was made of the same living metal as everything else. "The fail-safe," Dr. Park breathed. "It's beautiful." But between them and the platform were dozens of smaller Devourers, each one unique in design. These weren't the massive city killers they had faced before. These were elegant, deadly, and they moved with the precision of master fighters. The champions, Taemin realized. The voice mentioned champions guarding the core. The champions didn't attack immediately. Instead, they formed a circle around the human ship, studying it with alien intelligence. One of them, sleeker and more graceful than the others, moved closer. "Greetings, warriors of the Deathworld," it said, its voice carrying the same ancient authority as the city's voice, but with individual personality. "I am Kythara, first champion of the Eternal Hunt. You have fought well to reach this place." Taemin stepped forward, even though he knew the creature could kill him in an instant. "We've come to activate the failsafe, to put your people back to sleep." Kythara's form rippled with what might have been laughter. "You think you can simply activate ancient technology and end our awakening? The failsafe requires a price, little warrior. It requires sacrifice." "What kind of sacrifice?" "The same kind our enemies paid when they created this trap. A life force, freely given, to power the systems that will bind us once more." Kythara moved closer, and Taemin could feel the predatory intelligence behind its alien features. "But you already knew that, didn't you? You came here knowing one of you would not leave." Dr. Park stepped up beside Taemin. "I can operate the controls. The energy patterns are starting to make sense to me." "Dr. Park, no," Captain Yoon protested. "There has to be another way." "Maybe there is," Taemin said quietly. He looked at the other champions surrounding them. "Kythara, your people have been asleep for 50,000 years. In that time, the galaxy has grown and changed. New species have risen. New civilizations have been built. If you wake up fully and consume everything, you'll destroy wonders you've never seen." "We will create new wonders from what we consume," Kythara replied. "That is our nature." "But what if you could see these wonders first? What if you could experience the galaxy as it is now before deciding whether to destroy it?" The champion was silent for a long moment. Around them, the other Devourers shifted restlessly, as if sensing their leader's uncertainty. "You propose a bargain?" Kythara said finally. "I propose a choice," Taemin corrected. "You can wake up and consume everything blindly, or you can learn what the galaxy has become and then decide. Send scouts, not armies. Explore, don't destroy, at least at first. And if we find the current galaxy lacking?" Taemin met the alien champion's gaze without flinching. "Then we'll face you in honest battle, species to species, with no tricks or ancient traps." The chamber fell silent except for the pulsing of the crystalline structures. Outside, the battle between the fleet and the Devourers continued, but here in the heart of the city, the fate of the galaxy hung on the words of a human commander and an ancient alien warrior. "Interesting," Kythara said at last. "You offer us knowledge instead." The duel between Commander Lee Tae-min and Kithara began not with violence, but with a strange ritual. The champion moved in a slow circle around the human, its form shifting between solid metal and flowing energy. Other champions joined the circle, their voices creating a low humming sound that seemed to come from the city itself. "In the ancient times," Kithara spoke while moving, "our enemies understood that some battles are not won with weapons, but with will. This is such a battle." Tae-min felt something brush against his mind, like fingers made of electricity. The champion wasn't trying to hurt him, it was trying to understand him, to see what kind of being would risk everything for strangers. "Show me your strength, warrior of the Deathworld," Kithara commanded. Instead of attacking, Tae-min opened his memories to the alien champion. He showed Kithara images of Earth, the blue oceans that could drown you, the storms that could tear buildings apart, the creatures that hunted in darkness. He showed the champion why humans had learned to fight, to adapt, to never give up. But then he showed something else. He showed Kithara the first time humans had met another species in space. The fear, the wonder, the decision to reach out in friendship instead of striking first. He showed the champion how humans had learned to protect others, even those who called them dangerous. "Curious," Kithara said, its mental voice filled with something like surprise. "Your species learned warfare from your world, but you chose to use that strength to protect the weak instead of consuming them. Because we know what it's like to be weak," Tae-min replied. "Every human child is born helpless on a world that wants to kill them. We survive because others protect us, until we're strong enough to protect others." The champion's form solidified into something almost human-like, but larger and covered in the living metal of the devourers. "Then show me this protection. Fight, not for victory, but for the lives of those you guard." The real battle began as Kithara launched itself at Tae-min with speed that should have been impossible. But Tae-min had grown up on a death world, where reflexes meant the difference between life and death. He rolled aside and came up in a fighting stance his grandfather had taught him. Kithara struck again, its metal claws extending toward Tae-min's heart. But the human was already moving, using the champion's momentum against it in a throw that sent the massive creature tumbling across the chamber floor. "Impressive," Kithara said, rising gracefully. "You fight like the old ones did, not with rage, but with purpose." Meanwhile, outside the city, the battle between the Kethai fleet and the Devourer army had reached a critical point. Admiral Kethmon's flagship was badly damaged, with hull breaches on 3 decks and weapon systems failing across the ship. "Admiral," War Commander Jexal called from the tactical station, "we're receiving signals from across the sector. The humans have sent out distress calls to every species in the galaxy." "What kind of signals?" "Not asking for help," Jexal replied with amazement. "Warning everyone about the Devourers and asking them to prepare defenses." On the main screen, Admiral Kethmon watched as more ships began arriving at the edge of the nebula. Not just council forces, but independent traders, mining ships, even civilian vessels. They had all heard the human warning and come to help. Science Officer Torvin looked up from his console with excitement. "Admiral Dr. Lim Min-ho from the Human Research Station has arrived with a full science fleet. He's transmitting tactical data about Devourer weaknesses." Dr. Lim Min-ho's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional despite the chaos around them. "Admiral Kethmon, we've been studying the Devourer remains from your earlier battles. We think we've found a way to disrupt their adaptation systems. What do you need from us?" "We need you to keep fighting exactly as you have been. Every time you force them to adapt, you're creating patterns we can analyze. We're going to turn their own adaptability against them." Back in the city's heart, the duel between Tae-min and Kithara had become something beyond a simple fight. They moved together like dancers, each testing the other's resolve rather than trying to inflict damage. The champion would strike with deadly precision, and Tae-min would counter with techniques that turned the alien strength against itself. "You could have brought weapons," Kithara observed as they circled each other. "Energy guns, chemical, bombs, the tools your species uses so well." "Weapons wouldn't prove what you need to see," Tae-min replied, breathing hard from the exertion. "Anyone can destroy. You need to know if we can protect." The champion's next attack was different. Instead of striking at Tai Min, it moved toward Dr. Park So-young, who was still working at the ancient control console. Tai Min threw himself between them without hesitation, taking a blow that sent him crashing into the crystalline structures. "Interesting," Kithara said, helping Tai Min to his feet with surprising gentleness. "You would sacrifice yourself for one who is not your mate, not your offspring, not even your species." "She's my crew," Tai Min said simply. "I protect my crew, and your crew protects others, and those others protect their crews." An endless chain of protections spreading across the galaxy. The champion's form began to change again, becoming more energy than matter. This is what our enemies understood that we did not. Strength that serves only itself eventually consumes itself. Outside, the combined fleet continued to grow as ships arrived from across the galaxy. Pilot Han Ja-yeon led squadrons of fighters from a dozen different species, their tactics coordinated by human commanders who had learned to think like their alien allies. "All ships," Admiral Kethman broadcast across the fleet. "The humans have given us something more valuable than weapons. They've given us unity. Fight not just for your own species, but for all species." The tide of battle began to turn as the combined fleet implemented Dr. Lim Min-ho's new tactics. Instead of fighting the Devourer's adaptability, they embraced it. Every time a Devourer adapted to one type of attack, the fleet was ready with something completely different. Tech specialist Keldar coordinated the technical aspects of the battle from his command ship. "All vessels, rotate weapon frequencies on my mark. Don't let them settle into any single adaptation pattern." In the city's core, Kithara had stopped fighting entirely. Instead, the champion was studying the humans with an intensity that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "You came here knowing you might die," Kithara said to Tai Min. "Not for glory, not for conquest, but to protect species that barely accept you into their community. That's what makes them worth protecting." "Tai Min," replied. Dr. Park looked up from the control console with excitement. "Commander, I think I understand how the failsafe works. It doesn't just put the Devourers to sleep. It gives them a choice." "What kind of choice?" "The same choice you offered Kithara. The ancient energy beings who built this trap weren't trying to destroy the Devourers. They were trying to give them time to think, to consider alternatives to consumption." Kithara moved closer to the console, its form now mostly energy crackling with colors that had no names. "The failsafe is not a weapon. It is a meditation chamber, designed to help us see beyond our nature." "Will you use it?" Tai Min asked. The sea champion was quiet for a long moment, listening to something only it could hear. "The battle outside is ending. Your fleet has won, not through superior force, but through superior cooperation. They fight as you fight, protecting rather than consuming. What's your decision?" "We will sleep again, but not as prisoners, as students. We will send scouts to learn about this galaxy you have built together. If we find it worthy, we will protect it as you do. If we find it lacking," Kithara's form flickered with something that might have been humor, "we will teach it to be better." The champion moved to the control console and placed one metal claw on the crystalline surface. Energy flowed between them, and the entire city began to sing with harmonious notes that echoed through space. "The others will not be happy with this decision," Kithara admitted, "but they will respect it. You have shown us something we had forgotten, that true strength serves something greater than itself." Throughout the city, the massive Devourers began to slow their movements. One by one, they settled into dormant positions, their energy patterns shifting from aggressive hunger to patient observation. "How long will they sleep?" Dr. Park asked. "As long as they need to," Kithara replied. "When they wake, it will be to explore, not to consume. You have my word as first champion." Outside, the combined fleet watched in amazement as the Devourer army simply stopped fighting. The creatures didn't flee or explode. They just settled into peaceful rest, as if a great weight had been lifted from their minds. Admiral Kethman's voice carried across all frequencies as he addressed the gathered ships. "This day, we have seen something unprecedented. A species chose wisdom over warfare, cooperation over conquest. Let this be remembered as the day the galaxy learned what humans truly are." But even as the immediate threat ended, Everyone knew this was just the beginning. The Devourers would wake again someday. And when they did, the galaxy would need to be ready to show them wonders worth protecting instead of consuming. Medic Choi Yoon-ji's voice came over the communication system from the New Seoul's medical bay. "Commander, we're ready to treat wounded from all the Allied ships. The battle may be over." 3 months after the Battle of the Void Nebula, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Commander Lee Tae-min stood on the bridge of the New Seoul, now fully repaired and upgraded with technology from a dozen different species. Through the main view screen, he could see the monitoring station that had been built at the edge of the nebula. "Dr. Park," he called to his chief scientist, "what are the latest readings from the Devourer city?" Dr. Park So-young studied her, enhanced sensors with the same careful attention she had always shown, but now her equipment included crystals from the Kethai homeworld and computation matrices designed by the Council's best minds. "The city remains dormant, Commander, but the energy patterns have changed. They're more peaceful now." Captain Yoon Dae-ho looked up from his tactical station, which now displayed fleet positions from across 3 sectors. "Sir, Admiral Kethmon's ship is requesting permission to come aboard." "Granted. And Yoon, tell him to bring Admiral Nixara too. It's time for our monthly coordination meeting." The past 3 months had seen the formation of something unprecedented in galactic history, the Protector Alliance. It had started with the ships that responded to the human distress calls, but it had grown into a formal organization dedicated to defending the galaxy against threats too large for any single species to handle. Admiral Kethmon materialized in the New Seoul's main conference room, his blue skin marked with new scars from the recent battle, but his 4 arms strong as ever. Beside him appeared Admiral Nixara of the Council forces, her crystalline form sparkling with approval as she looked around the ship. "Commander Tae-min," Admiral Nixara said in her musical voice, "the Council has made its decision about the proposal. And humanity has been offered full membership in the Galactic Council, with a permanent seat on the Security Committee." She paused, her crystal face shifting to show what might have been amusement. The vote was unanimous. Tae-min felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For months, the Council had debated whether to trust the Deathworlders with such responsibility. The Battle of the Void Nebula had proven human courage, but some Council members still worried about human unpredictability. "There's more," Admiral Kethmon added. "The Council wants to establish joint training programs. Every species military will train with human officers to learn what they call Deathworld tactics." Engineer Kim Woo-jin's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. "Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission from the monitoring station. It's Dr. Lim Min-ho." Dr. Lim Min-ho appeared on the conference room's main screen, his face excited but serious. "Commander, we're detecting movement from the Devourer city. Not aggressive movement," he added quickly, "but something is happening." "On our way," Tae-min replied. The New Seoul arrived at the monitoring station within an hour, joining a small fleet of ships from the Protector Alliance. The station itself was a marvel of cooperation, built with human engineering, Kethai materials, and Council technology. It could detect energy patterns across half the galaxy and coordinate defensive responses in real time. "What exactly are we looking at?" Admiral Kethmon asked as he studied the data streaming from the Devourer city. Dr. Lim Min-ho pointed to the energy readings. 3 days ago, we detected the awakening of a single Devourer, not a large one and not aggressive. It emerged from the city, studied our monitoring station for several hours, then returned to dormancy. "A scout," Admiral Nixara realized. "They're beginning to explore, just as Kithara promised." As if summoned by the mention of its name, a familiar presence touched their minds. Kithara's voice spoke to all of them simultaneously, carrying the patient authority they remembered from their first encounter. "Greetings, protectors of the new galaxy. We have been dreaming, and our dreams have been filled with wonders." Tae-min stepped forward. "Kithara, it's good to hear from you. Are your people ready to begin their exploration?" "Some are. Others require more time to accept what they have learned from our scouts' brief journey. Your monitoring station alone contains technology from 17 different species, all working together for a common purpose. This was not something we expected to find." The alien champion's presence grew stronger, and suddenly, Kithara materialized in the station's main bay. But its form had changed. Instead of the predatory hunter they remembered, it now appeared as a being of flowing metal and energy that somehow conveyed both strength and gentleness. "We have a proposal for you," Kithara continued. "Allow us to send scouts to your worlds, not to study them for consumption, but to learn how different species can work together. In return, we offer our knowledge of the ancient galaxy and our protection against threats you have not yet encountered." Tactical Officer Bei Hyun-woo studied his sensor readings with interest. "Commander, I'm detecting similar energy signatures throughout the galaxy. Small ones, staying at the edges of inhabited systems." "More scouts?" Dr. Park asked. "No," Kithara replied. "Refugees. The ancient war that put us to sleep was not the only conflict in the galaxy's history. Other species, other threats, have been hiding and waiting just as we were. Our awakening has stirred them as well." Admiral Kethmon's expression grew serious. "What kind of threats?" "Some that consume energy instead of matter. Others that exist in dimensions parallel to yours. And some—" Kithara paused, its form flickering with concern. "Some that learn to consume hope itself, leaving entire civilizations alive but empty of purpose." The weight of this revelation settled over the assembled leaders. They had thought the Devourers were their greatest challenge, but they were just the beginning. "However," Kithara continued, "these threats know about the Devourers. They fear us, as they should. If we work together, if we combine your unity with our ancient knowledge, we can face anything the galaxy contains." Pilot Han Jayan's voice came through the communications system from her fighter squadron. "Commander, we're detecting movement. In the outer systems, multiple contacts heading this way." "Hostile?" Taemin asked. "Unknown. They're not using any known technology, but they're moving in formation." Admiral Nixara's crystal form brightened with excitement. "The first formal contact. Whatever these beings are, they've decided to reveal themselves." Medic Choi Yoonji prepared the station's medical bays for possible casualties, but also for possible first aid to species they had never encountered before. "All medical teams stand ready," she announced. "We don't know what these beings might need." As the unknown ships approached, Taemin found himself thinking about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a simple research mission, and a distress call that wasn't asking for rescue but warning others of danger. Now, humanity and its allies stood at the threshold of a larger galaxy than they had ever imagined. "Kithara," he said quietly, "are we ready for this?" The ancient champion's form solidified into something almost human, standing beside the commanders who had become its allies. "Commander, your species taught us that strength without purpose leads to consumption and emptiness. You showed us that true power comes from protecting others, not conquering them." The unknown ships were close enough now to see on the main screen. They were beautiful, made of what looked like crystallized starlight, and moving with the grace of swimming fish. "Now," Kithara continued, "we will see if the lessons we learned can be shared with others. The galaxy is vast, and it contains wonders we have only begun to imagine. Some of those wonders will need protection. Others may offer protection in return." Tech specialist Keldar coordinated communication attempts with the approaching ships. "I'm receiving signals on multiple frequencies. They seem to be trying to establish peaceful contact." Admiral Kethmon looked at the combined human, Keth-I, Council, and Devourer representatives around him. 6 months ago, most of our species had never worked together. Now we're about to welcome new civilizations into our alliance." "Because humans taught us something our individual species had forgotten," Admiral Nixara added. "That cooperation makes everyone stronger, not weaker." The first response came through the communication system in a voice like wind chimes mixed with ocean waves. "Greetings, builders of the new harmony. We are the Resonance Collective, survivors of the ancient silence wars. We have been watching your battle against the Devourers and your success in turning enemies into allies. We seek to learn your methods." More signals followed, each from a different group of beings who had been hiding in the galaxy's remote corners. Some had been refugees from ancient wars. Others had evolved in isolation and were just now ready to join the galactic community. All of them had heard about the alliance that had turned the most feared predators in the galaxy into protectors. Dr. Lim Min Ho coordinated the flood of incoming data with the calm efficiency that had made him famous. Commander, we're receiving contact requests from over 30 different groups. They all want to learn about the Protector Alliance. Then we'll teach them, Tae-min replied. But more importantly, we'll learn from them. Every species has something unique to offer. As the first new ships docked with the monitoring station, Tae-min looked out at the void nebula. The ancient city still slept within the swirling clouds, but it was no longer a prison. It had become a symbol of transformation, proof that even the